Hi, this is Geoff Hall with Around Town. You know, we did that interview with the groundbreaking down on Route 110, and you saw some of the construction work that's being done down there. But there's other projects that are going to be going on throughout the town. And so we're here today at the Highway Department garage with Town Engineer Paul Starratt.
Jeff, welcome to the highway facility. Glad to have you and glad to share with the public some of the exciting things going on in Westford.
Good, Paul. We're going to go inside and you're going to show us a little bit of your office and maybe some of the plans. And then we're going to go out on the road to a couple of sites and you can explain what that's all about.
Absolutely, glad to help out.
Well, we're in Paul's office. Paul, I know that you're busy around town with culverts, different things that the highway department is working on, and they're all over town. But there's some major projects that are going to be up and coming that are more time consuming. Let's take a look at Route 40. What do you have going on down there, first of all?
We have a couple of exciting projects on Route 40, and unfortunately we do have, like any other agency, we have limited resources, both manpower and financial resources. So to overcome that problem, we prioritize, and working with the highway department, the town manager's office, we have prioritized three particular intersections or locations on Route 40. There is the Route 40 culvert improvement project that's upcoming. That's at Kai's Brook, which crosses under Route 40 Groton Road.
And that's where we're going to go out there, actually, Paul, and you can show us the details.
Right. That is an important project. The highway superintendent has identified this as a priority because if this at some point were to fail, it would cause the closure of Route 40 Dunstable near Nutting Road, and that would be a serious problem for commuters and commerce here in town. So we're trying to be proactive and get in front of that problem, and have some more information we can share when we get into the field. Also along Route 40, there are two intersections that town meeting has authorized some funding to spend on the design of the two intersections, one at Groton Road and Dunstable Road, and then at Route 40, Groton Road, and Oak Hill. Both of those intersections, Oak Hill in particular, have above normal crash rates. In fact, the Oak Hill intersection is listed on the Northern Middlesex Council of Government's 100 dangerous intersections, most dangerous intersections. And so we've identified an opportunity to bundle those two intersections together as one design project to hopefully warrant the installation of signals or make other safety improvements, widening, dedicated turn lanes, etc., improved pedestrian facilities. And then whenever we're doing these projects, we look for the opportunity to make improvements to our stormwater facilities so that we have improved quality of stormwater going into our natural resources. So that's Groton Road.
Paul, any after we get a timeline, any timeline on when people could see those other? I'm talking Oak Hill Road and Dunstable Road.
We're currently in the designer selection process right now. In fact, later this month we'll be advertising, being November, we'll be advertising for a designer to take on that project. It's something that is too much time and manpower for us to design in-house, so we're going to retain the services of a designer to do that. That we anticipate would go through the winter months into the spring. We'll seek opportunities to get public input. We'll have some public meetings from stakeholders, businesses, and residents in the area that will be impacted by this installation of signals at those two intersections. And then hopefully we'll have enough information to go back to town meeting to appropriate capital for construction. And that will be sometime in the next few years that we'll be doing that.
Okay, going back to the other side of town, Route 110, you talked about another project along Route 110 other than what we see at Minot's Corner. Tell me a little bit about that, because we plan on going out there to that site.
Yeah, that'll be a good site to visit, Jeff, because again, this is an intersection that the town has identified as a priority to make improvements. Once more, because there are accidents that occur at that intersection. We also anticipate, because of the current construction of two significant housing developments in that neighborhood, that there's going to be a much bigger demand at the intersection of Tadmuck Road and Littleton Road. And so we're looking at an opportunity to widen there, add pedestrian facilities, crosswalks, sidewalks, and then finally signalize that intersection so that it'll be safe for the traveling public.
Okay, thanks, Paul. Let's head out.
Sure.
Okay, we're here along Route 40 in Kai's Brook, which runs under Route 40. Kai's Brook runs out of Kai's Pond, which is on Kai's Road, actually. Okay? And this brook runs out into the nutting under the old trolley line and ultimately enters into Stony Brook. Correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay? Paul, we talked back in your office about other projects that the town has on the agenda, other than the Route 110, which everyone is seeing.
Correct.
And you identified this one as one of the potential ones for the future, or one of the ones you have on your list for the future. Could you tell me a little bit about FEMA, which is the organization, the federal organization that is working with this, where your grant is coming from?
Correct. Chip Barrett, our highway superintendent, identified this as a priority some time ago, realizing that the condition of this culvert is suspect and needs attention. So we applied for a hazard mitigation grant through the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, along with the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency, to secure fundings to replace this culvert and improve it so that in the event there is some sort of a rain event or some other natural event, this won't get destroyed by that. Not unlike what happened some years ago over in Littleton at Groton and Littleton at Spectacle Pond Road. We learned from that, and we're also grateful that FEMA and MEMA have learned from their experiences in the past, and instead of coming in after a disaster to fix the problem, they look for opportunities to preclude problems, and this is a perfect candidate for that. This is a major route, and if it was to fail, if the road did start to show signs that it was not going to be passable, it'd be a disastrous detour and slow delay. So the highway superintendent and the town have recognized that this is a priority. We have appropriated some money to do some design work on this, and then eventually we're hopeful that FEMA and MEMA will pay for the construction.
I'm with Jeremy Downs. Jeremy, let me ask you this. We don't know how old it is.
Correct. It's a very old structure, fieldstone culvert here on this side of the brook. Yes.
Any anticipation, if you had to consider, this was I believe it was part of an old Indian trail. I don't think the Indians built it at the time. But actually, you think, well, it was a route that was used, so it was probably maybe the 1800s?
Yeah, it could have been. You know, we've looked at some past plans on other portions of Route 40 here, and there are old cow pastures and cow paths and things like that. So yeah, it's good. And obviously by the construction, it's it's very old. It predates us.
I grew up around the corner, and but it doesn't predate me. It predates me. Excuse me. I shouldn't have said it that way. Now, so this is kind of a preventive. You're taking a preventive approach rather than, for example, let me use two examples in Westford: Forge Village in Graniteville, the railroad bridge in Graniteville during the 90s, on Broadway Street in the 80s, and the bridge in Forge Village by the Abbott Mills. All of them failed, closed down the road, closed down the thoroughfare, and cause great difficulties for the residents. So what you guys are doing is you're taking a proactive approach. You're saying eventually this is going to. Any idea when?
Any idea when?
When it will fail?
We don't know when it will fail, but we know about 25 to 30 years ago on the opposite side of the road, you can't see it here, though, there was a partial failure. And at that time, the highway department came in and replaced a section of this fieldstone culvert with a large corrugated metal pipe. And that was the pipe was slid into the culvert, backfilled, and the road was put back together. So we know at some point that type of failure will also happen on this side. So we're taking that proactive approach. We're in the process of having the whole thing redesigned with a precast concrete structure that would have a design life anywhere between 50 and 100 years.
Any idea if this process starts, and you obviously are in the midst of the process, how long this is going to take and when people could anticipate construction?
Well, that's the important part of this, is that we are going, by taking the steps we have, we are going to be in control of when the road is detoured and when delays are going to occur, as opposed to the road closing being in control of us. If this were to fail and we hadn't taken the steps that we are, then we'd be starting with first having to have a special town meeting to appropriate money to do a design. Then we'd have to do that design, which would be a lengthy period of time. In the meantime, this road would be closed. We wouldn't, once we started to see signs of the road not being passable, you know, cracks or settlements or something like that, we'd have to detour it. And the detour would be so arduous that we want to be in control of that. So to answer the question, Jeff, it really is a matter of when FEMA releases the funds. We're working with our regional planners at the Northern Middlesex Council of Government to make that happen. We are hopeful that it will be for spring construction. We do need some finalized plans. We've been through the permitting process and all the some of the other things that need to occur.
So this could happen within the next year, is what you're telling me?
That we believe that something has to be done, or we're going to be out here on a regular basis checking. I should point out that there's no imminent danger to commuting public, precisely because we're aware of it and taking these measures to prevent that. We don't want people to be concerned that driving over this road is a hazard to them. We'll know well in advance if a failure is imminent, and we'll take proactive measures to protect the public.
Okay, who wants to field this one? When it happens, say, just let's hypothetically say, okay, it's put off for a year, so it's not the spring of 2014, it's the spring of 2015 when construction begins. How long will a construction take? Because you will have to close down the road for a period of time.
Right, because it's such a narrow right-of-way and a narrow road, we will have to shut it down because we'll be in control of it. We anticipate anywhere 2 or 3 weeks. We're hopeful to be able to get in, shut down the road, replace the culvert, and then open the road back up.
It beats a year or two.
Yes,
So
one of the other measures we're doing to shorten the construction length is we've had our designers at Land Tech specify a precast culvert that will be able to deliver. It will be delivered on a truck. They'll pick it up and drop it in. Of course, the work that happens in advance of that, the building of the foundation and the piers, that's what will take time for the detour. But the actual laying of the culvert will be actually it'll be a nice. We'll have you back out to watch that. We'll have a big, huge crane out here and drop it down right over the culvert.
We're also looking at other measures like using precast footings to kind of speed up the process so we can minimize the amount of road closure and detour necessary.
good. I think that kind of wraps it up for here. Thanks a lot, guys.
Absolutely.
One of the other projects that we talked about, Paul, when we were in the office was this one here along Route 110. It's about maybe a half a mile down from Minot's Corner. And this is the intersection of Tadmick Road and Littleton Road, okay?
Correct.
Nashoba Pizza and Subs is right across. If you went down the street a bit, you would be by Drew Farms, okay? So, tell me a little bit about what's going to be done here and where you are in the process.
This is another intersection, Jeff, that the town has identified as a priority to make improvements, largely because we've seen an increase in volume on this road, and this intersection has been studied enough to understand the increased crash rates. There are more accidents at this intersection than there should be. So we retain the services of an engineer funded by a local project, the Tabmuck Meadows housing. It's a comprehensive project that had mitigation funds available to the town, so we used those monies and some.
Paul, I can stop you. Mitigation, explain to people what mitigation funds are.
When a project is brought into a community and it's found to have impacts on that community, an increased demand on its school, its infrastructure, et cetera, but those projects are asked to make contributions back to the community where they're having those impacts. And so mitigation monies are being used to design this intersection specifically because these two new housing developments will have impacts to the traffic intersection here, and so that made sense to both the town and the developers that are advancing those projects.
What kind of improvements can we expect to see at this intersection?
Well, our design is at the 25% stage right now. In fact, the community will be invited to a public hearing. A date hasn't been established yet, and more information will be available about that. And those 25% plans suggest that a widening with dedicated turning lanes and more importantly, full signalization, a full traffic light at this intersection, in addition to some pedestrian facilities, crosswalks, and sidewalks will be added to the intersection. And then finally, we'll be making some significant improvements to the drainage system to improve the water quality going into our local natural resources.
Paul, when you say sidewalks, how far up will those sidewalks extend? For example, traveling up towards Minot's Corner, you're going to be going by Nashoba Tech. Will they be going up to Minot's Corner?
In the current design, we're limited to how far we can go. It'll be the limits of the work, which is not all the way up to the existing sidewalk. However, again, working with the Princeton Properties developers, they are participating in a sidewalk improvement program that'll extend that sidewalk all the way up. So eventually, over the next few years, that will all be connected as one pedestrian path going from Minot's Corner and all the way down to here.
Uh, uh, Comparing this to the project we saw over on Route 40, the time frame for this is a little different. Am I correct?
Correct, yeah. This is scheduled for the Transportation Improvement Program. I should point out, Jeff, that Littleton Road is a state-owned and operated, maintained road, and so the state will be paying for the construction. The town advances that construction by paying for the design, but once the design is completed, it is scheduled for construction currently in 2016, 2017 construction season. However, Chris Clutchman, our Director of Land Use Management, recently applied for a Mass Works grant, which could advance construction, and we could actually see these improvements done in the next couple of years.
Okay, so anywhere from 2 to 5 or 6 years.
Right. And I should point out that a Mass Work grant program is another state program, and what the state does, the Transportation Department identifies projects that have particular benefits to economic development or improved housing opportunities for residents. And the Tabmuck intersection is a good candidate for both of those because we have commuters going to and from work in the area, and then the addition of these two new housing projects in the area. So we're hopeful we'll know that shortly whether that money is available to us. Otherwise, we'll be staying on the 16-17 schedule for construction.
But once again, it's being proactive, seeing that there's a problem, trying to fix the problem. Unfortunately, it doesn't work overnight, and you want to use the proper channels to get the right sources of money in here and costing the taxpayers of this community less, correct?
That is right, Jeff, and doing nothing is not an option here because this intersection will see increased traffic volumes when the housing projects are done. So getting ahead of that curve as much as possible. The wheels of state government move very slowly, so we're in that process, as you're well aware. Yeah. And working with the Department of Transportation, we're hopeful that this intersection will be signalized, made safe for pedestrians, and improved water quality to our natural resources in the near future.
I know that when I was in office, and you say the real estate government do slowly. Fortunately, there's such a demand because there's so many projects throughout the state. It's how do you get yours to be heard, and get a priority. And we've been fortunate to have people down there working for us to get these moving forward as well.
Absolutely, Jeff. Infrastructure is vital to not only the quality of life, so that people aren't spending their lives sitting in traffic jams all day. It improves public safety, getting emergency apparatus to and from events, and then the economic development that occurs from better infrastructure. It's why you hear the president and the governor every time they get near a microphone, they're talking about infrastructure.
Thanks a lot, Paul.
Thanks, sir.
Back in the office here, Paul. This is, we were just out here there at Route 110, and you see this particular design. It shows that you just don't throw down some asphalt, do you?
No, intersection improvements are a lot more complicated than most people realize, largely because we're making changes to the way people operate motor vehicles and at high speeds on this particular stretch. So it's all taken very cautiously and very carefully, a lot of things into consideration, the sloping of the road, the location of the lanes, and so forth. Here at Tadmuck intersection, at the intersection of Tadmuck Road and Littleton Road, you can see from the complexity of this design that a lot of consideration has been given to pedestrian facilities like crosswalks, and we're making it sidewalks. We're making it accessible for anyone with disabilities to get through the intersection as a pedestrian. You'll also notice that there are some improvements to the drainage system. This is complicated because we have to account for quantities and qualities of water volumes making it into the nearby natural resources.
Well, good luck. Thanks a lot, Paul.